Let's take a look at all the purchasing power erosion that has happened over the last 7 to 8 months with interest rate hikes, and I'm going to tell you who stands to benefit the most from this real estate market in the GTA going forward. 2021 was the year of the downsizers. 2023 is going to be completely different. Stick around to find out. Hi, my name is Vas, and I'm a chartered professional accountant by training. However, I'm a full-time real estate broker right here in the GTA, helping you navigate through the insanity that we call the real estate market. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. So far to date, as of the recording of this video, it is November 10th, and we've had 3.5% worth of interest rate hikes. So let's say, assume Feb of 2022, where mortgage rates were at about 2%, we're now at 5.5%, give or take. I'm using round numbers. Let's see what that's done to purchasing power and what I think is going to happen in the future. To illustrate my point, let's just take a look at the city of Toronto by property type. So the top graph right here is your detached, and this table right here summarizes what happened in Feb based on where we are now in October and the percentage change. So you'll see detached drop the most, no surprise, dropped 23%, semi-detached at 19%, and condos, towns, and stack towns are between 9 and 12%. So they've held up the best. Detached or the most expensive properties have dropped the most. And here's what that means. When it comes to evaluating purchasing power and how rate hikes impact purchasing power, let's use an example using the average stats for the city of Toronto. In February of 2022, the average price was 2.1 million for a detached. Assuming your down payment is 20% and your mortgage at 2%, you would have had a mortgage of 1.7 million almost, and your monthly payment would have been $7,100. Okay. Now, 3.5% later, and being towards of 2022, here's what this looks like based on current average prices and purchasing power. Based on the stats I just showed you, right now in October of 2022, Toronto detached is at 1.62 million. Basically, prices have come down roughly 23%. Assume you want to buy this exact same house right now that was 2.1 million, but you want to do this in October, the current prices, with a down payment of with 20%, 324,000, your mortgage would have been just about 1.3 million, and at the current 5.5% rate, your payment is $7,900. So there's a discrepancy between 7,900 and 7,100. That means the way I see this is that prices in Toronto have not dropped low enough to reflect the purchasing power erosion, because I would want to see $7,100 here in order to feel that interest rates have been flushed through the system. And to illustrate my point, let's take a look at this table. If I wanted to have a $7,100 payment right now at 5.5%, that means my total mortgage amount would have to be 1.16. Assuming the old down payment of 324, prices should be in and around 1.5 million, or more importantly, they should have dropped by roughly 30% in the city of Toronto. So the way I see it right now is that for interest rates to have fully been baked in Toronto prices, we need to have seen a 30% decrease in prices opposed to the 23 we're seeing right now. So that means there's either a lag, or maybe Toronto is doing the Toronto thing, which is usually it just holds up better than everybody else for reasons unknown to us. Usually it's because of demand and everybody's long-term bullish on Toronto. But point being is, on a purchasing power erosion scale, Toronto is still behind. Prices have not dropped to where they need to be. But let's take a look at other regions, because that's where the story is a little bit clearer. Here's a recap of what happened with the GTA markets. Let's start with Durham. So Durham, as we all know, this was the darling of COVID, while between Durham and Hamilton. But anyway, let's take a look at Durham. As you see here, prices absolutely ripped. Like, you were looking at under $700,000 for a detached in Durham pre-COVID, and we ended up at almost 1.4 million, so almost double at peak COVID. Now, obviously, they're giving up all those gains, and you'll see semi-detached and detached have dropped almost 30%. Back to what I was saying before about purchasing power erosion. What we are seeing in Durham is exactly how much prices should have fallen based on the interest rate hike increases. So 3.5% eroded roughly 30% in pricing, and that's what we're seeing here in Durham. It's probably not even done yet. Townhouses dropped another 25%, which also were pretty expensive, and then nothing surprising here, condos and condo townhouses dropped the least, but still fairly significant for Durham. Toronto, which we already talked about, as you'll see here, the run up here was not as crazy. Condos were mostly flat. Detached did go up, but again, we've come back down to reality. The numbers are not as dramatic as we saw in Durham. So detached 23% decrease, and then condos, townhouses between 9 and 12%. Lastly, in York region, a bit of a mixed bag. So as you'll see right here, detached dropped 20%. So just like Toronto, I don't think the purchasing power erosion has fully been baked in to detached houses. We'll see, time will tell. Condos also came down by 12% and townhouses by 18%. The interesting thing here is obviously these are November numbers here, partial November numbers. We're seeing a pickup in detached, but I think this is just an incomplete month. I don't think we're actually going to have an increase in November, but crazier things have happened. But nonetheless, downward pressure on pricing is still there, and we're likely in for more rate hikes. All right, it looks like I've run into some technical difficulties with my camera, but I don't think you want to look at my mug anyway, so let's just get through with this. So who stands to benefit the most from this? And in my opinion, it's going to be upsizers, and here's why. I'm going to run you through a bunch of different scenarios of upgrading from a condo to a semi, whether it's in Durham, Toronto, or York, and I'll show you by the numbers with the current rates why upsizers tend to win, especially if we continue the current trajectory of the market where detached continues to drop at its current pace and cheaper properties like condos remain a little bit more stable. So let's start with the city of Toronto. If you were to upgrade from a condo apartment to a semi-detached, which is a very common move, this is what I see a lot with different clients, so Toronto condo to a Toronto semi, back during the peak, you would have been looking at an additional mortgage of $700,000 at 2%. Your monthly payment would have been roughly $3,000. If you were to perform this exact same move right now, or this upgrade, in October 2022, based on current prices between condos and semi-detached, your mortgage would actually be just under $500,000. So you're effectively saving $200,000 in aggregate dollar amount. So that means you're looking at a 30% decrease in total mortgage size to do this move now versus doing it back during the peak. Now, your monthly payment, however, will be a little bit higher, roughly 3% higher. Not a big deal. I think I would call this pretty much a wash. So basically, if you were to do this move right now, Toronto condo to Toronto semi-detached, payment stays the same right now, even at the higher rates, simply because the mortgage amount has dropped by $200,000. Now let's see what this would look like if you were to do this exact same move, but in York Region. So you move from your condo in York Region to a semi-detached. If you were to do this during the peak, it would have been a $628 additional dollars in mortgage at 2% and a payment of $2,600. If you're to do this now, you're looking at a $410,000 mortgage, so 35% less in total mortgage, and your payment also drops by about 6%, even if it's at 5.5%. So this is good news. The biggest story is in Durham. If you were to move from a condo apartment to a detached, if you were to do this during the peak, you would have been looking at $726,000 of additional mortgage. Now you're looking at almost $300,000 less, or $432,000. So that means the payment at the lower rate would have been $3,000. However, if you're to do it now at 5.5%, it's actually $2,600, or the payment actually drops by 14%. So this is a net win across the board: lower payment and lower total mortgage. Now this creates a very nice little summary if you're moving within regions. But what actually happens is typically you have people from Toronto upsizing into the suburbs. Oh, look at that. My face came back. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Let's see. I'll run you a basic scenario where people or clients of mine will upsize from downtown Toronto or North York, and they'll want to go to York Region, Markham, Richmond Hill because of the schools, or they'll want to go to Durham because they can get a bigger house, more space, etc. So let's run two different scenarios. Moving from a condo in downtown Toronto, or let's just say condo in Toronto, moving to a York Region semi, so a Richmond Hill semi or a Markham semi, and then doing the exact same thing, condo in Toronto to Durham detached. So this is another good news story if you're upsizing. If you're moving from a condo in Toronto, if you're to do this move and move into a semi-detached in York Region, you would have been looking at just under $600,000 in additional mortgage at 2%, $2,500 payment back in Feb. Now we're looking at $2,300 and a 37% decrease in the total mortgage amount. So your additional mortgage would have been another $376,000. Your payment drops by almost 10%, win-win once again. And for those of you looking to upsize and go to Durham, where you can get more bang for the buck and a bigger house and actually a detached house, you were looking at $551,000 you were looking at $551,000 mortgage at 2%, so $2,300 payment. Now you're looking at a massive reduction. So over 56% reduction in total mortgage amount with only an additional 242,000 at 5.5%. Your payment actually to do this exact same move now from a condo to a detached in Durham, you're looking even at a payment that drops by 37%. This is a big win if you're looking to upsize from Toronto and go to Durham. Now, to recap, this is not to say that right now everybody's got to go and run and upsize. Obviously, there's a lot of volatility in the market. And the one problem I see right now with condos in particular is they're sitting on the market a lot longer and it's taking longer to sell them. Uh, that could pose an issue if you're trying to upsize before you sell, before you know exactly how much you can get for your condo. That being said, also, this is just theory to show you directionally basically where we're going right now based on how much prices have dropped for detached in different areas relative to condos or cheaper properties. So the story here is that the spread between condos and detached is narrowing, making it cheaper for upsizers to upgrade. So I think 2023, if you have stable employment, you have life circumstances, you're expecting to have a kid or you're growing a family, it may not be a bad idea to consider upsizing because, as you can see, the numbers are starting to look very attractive even with the higher rates. I hope you enjoyed this content and I hope you found it helpful. If you liked it or if you have any questions, you can always reach me, text or email me. I love chatting real estate, and if you have any questions, I'll make sure to help you as best as I can.